All right, so this right here is 100% 3D printed. This right here is a dummy round. This is all I'm going to say about this. Just know we're kind of talking about it. Okay? And so even though this isn't about that, there is a very strong point I want to make about 3D printers and personal preparedness, self-reliance, self-sufficiency. 3D printing gets a bad rap. A lot of people, when they think of 3D printing, they think of these little Flexi Rexes and all these little toys. This one I scaled up to be even bigger. And when it comes to these toys, yes, you can make a lot of little toys that are made out of plastic that are pretty cool to play with. But what I want to show you is, here is a shark knife. It's made out of plastic. It's made out of PLA. I made the tang out of white filament, and so you can get filament in all, there's lots and lots of different colors you can get filament in. And then I made the handle scales out of black. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because you can print handle scales. And so if you go to Thingiverse, which I will link in the description box down below, I don't have an affiliation or anything with them, because everything they have is free. I don't know if they have anything paid, but what Thingiverse is it is a website that I have no affiliation with, no correlation with, no nothing. That's just how I get stuff to 3D print. Is there's people that dedicate their time and energy into making files that people like me, who have zero knowledge on how to use a CAD program, zero knowledge on how to make a model like this, they make the models, they put them on Thingiverse, and then someone like me with a 3D printer can download those files and then print cool stuff, right? And so to print these handles, so like if you want to print handle scales, you can look up the year 1911, if you catch my drift. And there's handle scales for that. There's handle scales for a lot of different things. And so if you have a knife and you want to put handle scales on them, you can find a model, use that model, or if you do know how to use a CAD program like Insta360, or not Insta360, Fusion 360. Insta360 is a camera. But Fusion 360, Bender, I don't even know what they are all called. But if you have a CAD program, then you can create a 3D model. You can put that 3D model into a slicer. The slicer will slice it into a bunch of little thin lines, and then the 3D printer will print those thin lines into a product. And making handle scales, making different things that you can, again, this is all 3D printed. And so the tang is 3D printed, the handles are 3D printed, the rivets are 3D printed. It's all plastic, and yet it works really well. And so this is a really cool way to use your 3D printer to, again, if you have a handle scale that breaks, or if you're batoning and your handle breaks, you might be able to 3D print a new one to replace it, instead of ordering a new handle scale, instead of ordering a new knife, instead of, you know, just dealing with it or using paracord. If you have filament and you have electricity, you can make your own. The other thing is pots. So this is a little starter plant. It has starter pot for plants. It has holes on the bottom for drainage. I can print these pots in about an hour and a half. And it uses about 80 cents worth of filament, okay? And so filament comes in a spool. It's a 1 kilogram spool, which is 2.2 pounds. They're $20 a piece, but you can usually get a 4-pack for $50 about. And so that makes it $12.50 per roll. And so if you buy a 4-pack, of course, each item is going to be cheaper. But for about 80 cents, I can make these little pots myself. And again, I can have little starters growing in here. I can have herbs growing in here and put them up on the windowsill in the kitchen. And I can have my gardening, right? I can have all my starters started in the house. And then when it warms up outside, I can transfer everything out there. And so that makes these really nice for gardening. You can make other containers too for organizing all your preparedness items, for organizing drawers, organizing things so that's easy to find them, easy to get to, easy to put them away once you've used them. So containers, starter pots, it's another good way of utilizing these in a prepper type fashion. This right here is pretty cool. This is a little base that you would dump. So if you have a baggie that has the little tiny nuts, bolts, and washers, you can dump it on here, and then these bins lock. So they have little ears on them. They lock onto here. Then there's little ramps. So you would attach all of those. You dump the bag on here, and then you sort the bolts into one bin, the washers in another, the nuts into one. You can have everything sorted, and then you take them apart and then dump these into their own separate bags or drawer or bin or whatever it is that you're doing. And so again, for sorting different things, this is pretty sweet. This are component trays. I use these for board games, but I'm going to make another set for the garage because there's always times where you dump out a little baggie of nuts or bolts or screws or something, and then you grab the 2-3 that you need, you use them, and then you have to pour them back into the baggie. Well, this has a little spout, and so I can dump it back in the baggie very quickly, very easily, and I'm not losing a bunch of items. They're not rolling off and going to who knows where. So these are actually pretty cool. They're stackable, so they don't take up a lot of space. And again, I can put a bunch of them out, put different things in each one, and then just pour them all back in the baggie or the container that they were originally in. So these are pretty sweet. This right here is a checklist. So this opens up. I made these out of printer paper. I just put them in here, closed this, and then took a pen, lined them up. And so then I can make 4 of these per sheet of printer paper. And what's cool about this, my plan was when it came to using these, was I was going to use them as a checklist for groceries. And so sometimes money is tight and sometimes we have to stick to the basics, right? Well, here are 10 lines. We could put the 10 basic grocery items on here, and we can go through our pantry, we can go through our fridge, and we can check to make sure that everything we have it, and then everything that's not checked, we can go to the grocery store, buy it, and then we can check it to make sure that we do still have it, or we can reverse it. We can just go and see all the things that we run out of. We can reverse it, and so then we know what we're out of and what we need. That way we always have the basics on hand, right? The eggs, the chicken, the hamburger, the flour, the rice, the salt, the milk, the basics that we need. But what's really cool is Caroline actually filled one of these out, and she put all of our bills on it. So now I got to print another one of these. But she put all of our bills on it, so it has the bill and a number, and the number is the date that it's due. So it'll be like garbage 15, right? This means that the garbage is due on the 15th. And so if it's not checked, right? So if I got a bunch of these that are checked, and then I see that garbage 15, and it's the 12th, I got to pay that bill, right? If it's the 12th, I got to make sure that that bill is paid before the 15th. Or if she sees it, she knows she has to pay that bill. And now we know what bills are paid, what bills aren't paid. I thought that was a really good idea. And so now I'm going to print another one of these. We're going to have one for groceries, one for bills, so that we are both on the same page. I want to make another one, a third one, and I want to put a power outage list. And so when the power goes out, I can go turn off furnace / air conditioners, because I like to turn off the furnace. Yes, I know there's a safety feature so that the propane doesn't come on, but I don't know if that safety feature works, right? There's no way of me knowing if that safety feature is working or not. I know if I turned it off or on, right? If I turned it off, I know it's off. Trusting the safety feature, that's not what I'm about. The other thing is we have window air conditioning units, and I don't want all of them turning on at the exact same time the power comes back on, right? We have a sump pump in the basement. We have the air conditioners. We have the chest freezer, the fridge. I don't want all of that stuff kicking on all at the same time when the power comes back on. So I want to have a list of all the things that I need to shut off, that I need to check, that I need to make sure are okay. And then, because when the power goes out, right, we're doing anything, right? If you turn the oven off, you're always like, did I turn the oven off? And you got to go check, right? In a power outage, I'm like, did I turn off the chest freezer? I don't turn off the chest freezer, but it's like, did I turn off the hot water heater? Did I turn, like, what did I do? Instead of wandering around the whole house 10 times, figuring out what I did and didn't do, I can just look at this and I can say, oh, yes, I did for sure turn all of those things off. And I can check this 10 times instead of wandering around the house 10 times. And so again, from a personal preparedness standpoint, I think this is pretty cool. And I think this only cost me like $1 to print. And then of course the piece of paper that I had to cut up. But yeah, there are use cases for a lot of this stuff. And again, Thingiverse, printables, it's all free. Everything I'm showing you has been free. Even this thing that we're not talking about was free. This right here, this is what got me, this is what made me buy the 3D printer. I read the article. This right here is a ratchet that actually ratchets. It only tightens, it doesn't loosen. But this is a ratchet that they use on the International Space Station. And so the International Space Station has a 3D printer, they have filament, and what happened was is they needed a ratchet and they didn't have one. And when it comes to the International Space Station, anything you get has to come on the next shuttle, and that next shuttle might be months away, right? And so if you need it and you can't wait months, they have a 3D printer, and then somebody on the ground comes up with a CAD program or a model that can solve that problem, even just temporarily, can solve that problem. They 3D print it, and then they solve the problem. And they don't have to wait months before they can do what they need to do. So this ratchet is only 3 inch-pounds, and it solved the problem on the International Space Station. It was designed by an engineer, and I thought that that was the coolest thing ever. And it started getting me to think about, if I can't go to the store, right? If I have electricity and I have filament, but I don't have no money, I can still 3D print this right here. If this breaks, right? If something happens to this, even though it is very, very sturdy, if this breaks or something happens to this, in an hour and a half, I can have another one. It might not be gray, it might be black or white or blue or red or whatever color I have, but I can have another one of these in an hour and a half. Right now, I could turn this camera off, print one of these, and in an hour and a half, have one of these for my beans, my peas, my cucumbers, whatever it is I need. And I think that that is amazing. This spring, I wasn't going to talk about this, but we'll talk about this spring. This spring doesn't last very long. Okay, it's just a plastic spring. It works about 3 times. Okay, so when you first put it in, it'll lock everything back. It'll do what it's supposed to do, right? It works very well the first like 3 times you rack the slide back. After that, it won't lock the slide back anymore. It'll keep the slide back because the fuller will keep it. It'll keep it locked back, but it won't lock it back on its own. After using it 3-4 times, this spring, you can't get the last couple rounds out. The spring gives out. But I can 3D print like 100 of these springs and just have them on standby. And when I need them, I can use them, right? I don't need this spring to last me 100 times. I can print 100 springs and use one per time I need it, right? And as long as I have electricity, as long as I have filament, I can just keep printing those springs and I can keep doing what this does, right? And so I think that that's amazing. I can't believe, you know, and if I bought a real spring for this that was actually made out of metal, and I got a real spring for this, it would last just as long as a normal plastic mag would, right? And so the fact that I have the capabilities right now to go and print something that I may need, or something that could make my life easier or make me more prepared, more self-reliant, more self-sufficient, it just blows my mind. And so yes, it does make cute little toys. It makes little boats. It makes little Flexi Rexes. It makes little push button clickers and fidget toys. But it can also make a lot of really cool things that are actually very useful in day-to-day life. It can help you get more organized. It can help you do things that you haven't done before, even if you want to start an herb garden, right? I could put herbs inside of here and I could see if I could grow my own thyme, my own parsley, my own whatever it is that people grow in herb gardens. I could print these off, test it out, see if it's something I enjoy, see if it's something that's possible inside my home for close to not like 80 cents per pot, right? I'm not investing a lot of money into the pot. I'm investing a lot in the 3D printer, but if I am printing a bunch of things that I'm using, right, it's worth it. This is all just bonus from that point on. So, with that being said, in the description box, I'm going to leave a link to Thingiverse and Printables. Those are the places I get all of these files for free. I just have to download them. You can look up the year 1911. Like I said, if you want to see some handle scales, you can look up your favorite company. And there's a lot of things on those companies that work. Even if you look up like DeWalt, Milwaukee, Makita, there's a lot of really cool things for tool companies as well that are very useful. And so again, I will leave links to those below. Search for whatever it is you're interested in, and I'm sure things will come up that you will find very helpful, very handy. And then in the comment section down below, I want to know if you had a 3D printer, what would you print? If you do own a 3D printer, what are some things that you've printed that are actually useful? What are some things that you're actually using? Even if you don't use them on the daily basis, but have just made your life easier, let me know in the comment section because I'm probably going to print them. I'm probably going to use them. And so thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you like this outside of the box thinking. I try to always think outside the box. I try to incorporate different personal preparedness things. There's like eyeglass pliers for fixing glasses, especially after a collapse when you can't go to an eye doctor. You need to be able to fix your glasses by yourself. And I'm always thinking about how can I utilize different things to become more self-sufficient. And 3D printing was one of them. And I'm always trying to incorporate other professions, other tools, other things into becoming more self-reliant, self-sufficient, aka prepared. Subscribe so you don't miss a video, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.